Hello, and welcome to this training event to help you to master the skills of public speaking for influence and impact. My name is Camilla Long. I'm a public speaking coach and I'm the founder of the Speakeasy course. I'll share ideas with you in this session so that when you speak, you make your voice count. And why have you joined me today? Well, in the last few waves of the pandemic, as things have settled, we've seen a return to live events, to conferences, to face-to-face meetings, and it's been really good to get back into the room. But we live in an unpredictable world and work from home orders, and let's face it, for many people in a lot of industries, the breakneck speed with which the world has moved to virtual means that for a lot of people, we're not going back to 5 days in the office ever again. And what does that mean for us as speakers and presenters? Well, in the last few months alone, I've lost count of the number of people who've said to me, Camilla, I'm back in the room, I'm back in the boardroom. It's anxiety inducing, cranking up my PowerPoint with all those eyes on me. And I get it. And standing up on a stage with a microphone in hand, with that sea of faces in front of you, there's no question, but that's a daunting experience. Change is hard, and it's hard to change back, even though that's how it always used to be. We've all got used to the comfort of our home offices when it comes to delivering presentations and talks and keynote speeches. But let's face it, the trend online is towards disengagement. It's harder than ever to ask people to turn their cameras on. It's harder to get their attention, and it's challenging to keep their attention. So for you, that means absolutely that speaker presence is absolutely key. And when it comes to preparing what it is that you're going to say and thinking about those key important meetings, those key important sessions, it's so important to be disciplined in your preparation and direct in what you've got to say. In today's event, I will share my system with you, even if you feel anxious about speaking in front of others on screen or face to face, even if you feel vulnerable at times sharing your own story, even if you feel that others take credit for your ideas in meetings. Today's event will be packed with value. I'll share advice with you to help you with your next presentation, with your next video, with the next time you're asked to undertake a stressful speaking engagement. And at the end of today's event, with your permission, I'll share information about my Speakeasy video presenting and public speaking course, where I personally coach you to become a powerfully confident public speaker and presenter. If you'd like to use the chat during this event, please subscribe to our channel. Only subscribers can access the chat. Now, every day I work with experts. I work with people who've set an intention to move the dial on their public speaking. And let's face it, where focus goes, energy flows. So these are professionals who want to be associated with their expertise. They want to build a personal brand or a brand for their business that stands for the thing that they excel at. They want to lead and motivate their teams. They want to persuade stakeholders to join them on a journey. And since most of my coaching is completely private, it's between me and the people who come on my programs, let me share with you some of my clients who've taken the ultimate step in personal branding and delivered a TED Talk. First up, Derek McCann, no stranger to the international stage. As an experienced motivational speaker and executive coach, he speaks on stages all over the world. And when it came to his TED Talk, Derek chose to work with me to make sure that his talk resonated with the audiences he wanted to influence. His talk has now been viewed thousands of times and is a kind of magnet for the clients that he works best with. Eileen Mullen is a respected board advisor and experienced mediator. When Eileen decided to tick delivering a TED Talk off her bucket list, she knew what she wanted to say. She just needed help to say it. Eileen's TED Talk on making time for what matters to you has now launched a national movement in Northern Ireland where she's based. Her boardroom apprenticeship programme is a unique learning, development and placement opportunity that's having a huge impact on the diversity of boards all across Northern Ireland. Kieran Kelly, blockchain expert. For almost 20 years, Kieran has designed and delivered enterprise security solutions for government and aerospace clients. He's no stranger to the speaking stage, having worked with audiences all over the world. And I coached Kieran for his recent TED Talk on rethinking our global supply chain. Kieran said that my attention to detail and ability to guide and signpost him had a unique and profound effect in helping him to understand how to deliver that TED Talk powerfully. These are 3 people that have stepped out in the most public way to make their voice heard. Every day I work with people whose story I don't share. It's a private journey that we're on together, but on LinkedIn, I see the impact of my clients' investment in their communication. I see them speaking at industry events. I see them recruiting team members. I see them signing new clients. By making the decision to invest in their communication, good things happen for them. Let me ask you, do you sometimes leave meetings feeling like you lost their attention? Or that things seem really obvious to you, but no one else seems to get it? Or maybe you get to the top 2 in every job interview, but you miss out on the top slot. How much better would it feel if you felt absolutely confident in every speaking situation when the spotlight is on you? Well, I'm passionate about helping people in this regard because, quite frankly, I remember my own struggles and setbacks in this area, and quite frankly, eek moments. For example, one moment stands out in my mind. I was working as a stockbroker in the London market. Our office was located on Leadenhall Street, right in the heart of the City of London, right opposite the iconic Lloyd's of London building. Any of you that know Lloyd's of London, it's famous for being the inside out building. Well, it was a hot summer's day and I'd been asked to stand in for my director at the monthly senior leadership team meeting. So I arrived in the boardroom, took my seat, and it came to my turn to present. I stood up in front of my chief executive, my chief operating officer, and all of the division heads for the bank and started my presentation. You can imagine my mortification when the chief executive looked at his watch, asked me to take my seat and suggested that I email that presentation over to him instead. Well, I felt as though the ground could swallow me up. I sat down, the aircon clunked noisily overhead, the air in the room was absolutely stultifying, and all I could do for the remainder of that meeting was sit and watch as those elevators went up and down the Lloyd's building opposite, and I just wished that I could disappear. That was a moment that was difficult to recover from, but as the following weeks and months went by, I realised that something needed to change. My mistake in that meeting was I drowned them in detail. I gave them all the information that mattered to me, not information that mattered to them. So I made a decision. I went out and I invested in my public speaking. I took courses with expert trainers and leading researchers, and that's a learning journey that continues to this day. I've distilled all of that learning down into a simple, easy to use 3-part system that anybody can use. And that's what I'd like to share with you today. Let me explain who my system will work for. If you work for a large organisation in the service sector, in construction, professional services like accountancy or law, or maybe you work for local government or the civil service, if you're ambitious and want to have choices ahead of you in your career, you need to develop a profile or a personal brand. Or maybe for you, you own your own business in engineering, in recruitment, in retail, in healthcare. It really doesn't matter what you do, just as long as you're responsible for those all-important client relationships in your company. Or maybe you manage the talent within your company. So In summary, if you're a business owner who wants to overcome a reluctance to speak in public, or if you're ambitious and want to go for promotion or change jobs, my system will help you. But let me caveat that. If you're on this webinar right now and you're finding yourself overwhelmed with the work that you need to do to keep your business afloat, if you find yourself working evenings and weekends, well then, I'm sorry to say, now is not your time. None of these ideas are quick fixes. They take time and intentionality to get right. So, if you have headspace and are ready to listen up. I'd like to share with you the 3 mistakes that I see my clients making time and time again. Mistake number 1, making the presentation all about your expertise. I work with experts, people who over a long period of time have built up deep expertise in their own industry. They have spent time and invested time in their subject matter knowledge and built up that experience over time. And so then the tendency is when they stand up in front of you, their audience, the presentation becomes all about them and their expertise. That's the key mistake that's going on here. It's not their job to filter every piece of information that they've spent years accumulating. Their job is to get you invested in the outcome of their presentation. Think of a speaker who you admire, a speaker whose talk has been widely shared, a speaker whose talk you respect, a speaker whose talk connects with you. I'm thinking of some of those TED speakers like Brené Brown, Simon Sinek. Their talks, these are speakers with deep expertise who've managed to make their subject matter expertise relevant and accessible to actually tens of millions of people. Now, truth be told, there are people who've really listened to their audiences and they've developed talks that speak to their audiences listening. But I'm a HR director and I need to share information about well-being and benefits packages with my team, I hear you cry. Or maybe you're the financial controller and your job is to present the sales figures to the monthly team meeting. Or maybe you're tasked with taking over a change management project. In any case, that talk, that presentation that you need to do is there to influence the folks in the room. Your presentation is no less impactful than somebody who chooses to stand up and share their expertise from a red TED dot. Because here's the thing, when you stand up in front of your colleagues, you're inventing their future. You're sharing information with them that can help them to be better at their job, that can help them to have a better experience at work. And it's about making sure that you filter the information so that that is what comes across. Here's the one word that can make all the difference in your presentation. One simple word that can change that presentation from being about your expertise to being something that's got relevance and accessibility to your audience. And that word is you. So let's imagine for a moment that you're that financial controller and your job is to get out there in front of the sales team. Well, your presentation is not all about how you prepare the figures and where the data comes from. Really, what that sales team needs to see is trends over time or standout moments, information that can help them to be better at their job. If you filter out the story in that data, pick out this client over the last 3 months, we're noticing a trend towards clients purchasing 20% more of X product. Or maybe there's been a blip in the figures and you need to reflect on the fact that actually delivery costs have gone through the roof. What can we do in our marketing to mitigate that? How do you make that presentation all about those folks that are in the room in front of you? There's one exception to this, and that is if you're being asked to share your story. Maybe you're an ordinary person who's achieved extraordinary things. Well, very often you'll be asked, I know there's some of you on this call today who are asked to stand up in front of audiences to share your story for that reason. And you know, your talk is all about the storytelling. Your talk is all about helping people to see themselves reflected in your experience. So for you, it's about picking out moments, heart-stopping moments moments that made you cry, moments where you realised something new, moments that made you laugh. Pick out those moments and pin your story around that. But here's the thing, when you do that, when you make your presentation all about your audience, how liberating is that? This is what will give you the confidence to stand up in front of the camera or to get out to get out onto a podium in front of an audience. When you make your presentation all about your audience, watch how they listen to you in a completely different way. You've got that synergy going on with your audience that just is so confidence inspiring. Apart from the fact that you've just flipped the switch on your audience's engagement by making the talk all about them, you've just taken a whole lot of pressure off yourself. So that is how you overcome mistake number 1. Here's mistake number 2 that I see happening for all the time, and that is overthinking. If you're that overthinker, if you have does that mean that if you have a presentation or a media interview coming up, it lives inside your head rent-free for the longest time? Because sometimes those high-stake moments have the ability to hijack our well-being without us even being aware of it. Let's face it, worry is part of our threat response. It's perfectly normal. It's only when it starts to take over your life that it becomes a self-sabotage mechanism. What can you do about that? Well, first things first, distract yourself. Get out for a run. Go out for a walk. Take the dog out for a walk. Go cook a meal. Distract yourself from the task at hand. Do something physical and then come back to the task. Watch how that just helps to reset your mindset. Secondly, be present. For an event where your reputation's at stake, the first thing to realise is that you don't have to be right, but you do have to have the right mindset. Take time to invest in your own headspace. That's the hallmark of every great presenter. There are any number of apps that you can access, Headspace, Calm.com, so many meditation apps. And this is where my client John was at when he came to me. He's in a fast-growing technology company and the opportunities for career progression are immense. But the work kept on coming and he found himself with these presentation opportunities, communication opportunities that were just taking up so much of his time. We worked together and he said for him the biggest shift for him was working on the psychology of being present, not stressing about the last presentation that he'd done and how disastrous it had been, or not catastrophizing how the presentation outcome was going to be, but instead focusing on himself and his mindset on going into that presentation with his audience in mind. That for him has been a game changer. And here's the third thing that you can do to help with that whole idea of the overthinking and the stress that comes with that. And that is really investing in your breathing. And it might sound like a strange thing to say. After all, we take 23,000 breaths a day and we don't even give any thought to it. But breathwork has become a science. There are any number of disciplines and approaches to it. Buteyko, we've got Wim Hof, we've got so many different yoga approaches to breathing. But here's one simple little tool that I'm going to introduce to you right now. And this one simple breathwork routine can help you ahead of any stressful evaluative situation. First things first, I'm going to ask you to breathe in through your nose. I'm going to ask you to inhale through your nose. Now, put your hand on your tummy. As you inhale, you should feel your tummy blow up like a balloon. So we're going to take a 3-step approach to this breathwork routine. We're going to breathe in through your nose, hold that breath, and then exhale through your mouth. So I'm going to ask you to inhale for 5 seconds, hold that for 5 seconds, and exhale for 10. So let's give this a go together. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Long exhale, right? Let's give that a go one more time. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And one last time. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that is a great way for helping with your overthinking. And that brings me neatly to mistake number 3. And this mistake is actually the opposite of the previous mistake. For those of you that don't engage in overthinking, there is a risk that you actually involve yourself in a little bit of an avoidance strategy. Do you take the ostrich approach? Do you stick your head in the sand and pretend that the presentation isn't happening at all? Well, if you're a procrastinator, let me tell you one thing. All that's happened there is you've developed a procrastination habit. And like with any habit, there are 3 features of that habit. 1, the trigger, the stress of the presentation coming up. 2, the pattern of behaviour, avoidance. 3, the reward, avoiding that stress by ignoring it altogether. All that's going on here is a little bit of retraining that's required on your part. So it takes a little bit of self-awareness to identify, first of all, that there is a trigger, that there is stress going with that. So first of all, when you notice that, when you become aware that that stress is happening for you, let's just reset the pattern of behaviour. And there's a little technique, you can Google it, it's called the Pomodoro technique. It takes 25 minutes ahead of an interview, a podcast, a presentation, a keynote address. All you need to do is find 25 minutes in your diary to make a start on your preparation. You can use my 3-part system, which starts with the audience. You can use that system to sit down and help you to prepare for that presentation. 25 minutes is all that you ask. You can park it then. Leave it. Don't even look at it. Absolutely. Continue to avoid it. Continue to forget about it. But what will have happened within those 25 minutes is that you will have a whole lot of ideas floating around in your subconscious brain, so that when you go to do your lastminute.com preparation, it's going to be powerfully much more effective because you've spent and invested the time up front and your brain has been working on it all the time in the background. So they, folks, are 3 of the mistakes that I see happening for folks all of the time. And I did promise you that at the end of the session I would share information with you about my speakeasy video presenting and public speaking course. The great thing about all of this is that now is your time. You've attended this live training, you're an expert, and all around you, you see people, sometimes not with the same degree of professionalism as you, stepping up and claiming the glory. But here's the truth of the matter. Success leaves clues. You're trusted by your team, by your manager, by your clients. This is now time to shift your mindset and to seek out opportunities to make yourself visible to a wider audience. You can find information on Speakeasy on my website. Let me have a little click here and get on here to the website. You'll find information under what we offer. And on Speakeasy, you'll learn behind the scenes secrets of experienced TV presenters, approaches to managing nerves, how TEDx speakers engage and motivate their audiences, behaviours for a credible, charismatic executive presence, and skills and practices to build your confidence. If you'd like a conversation with me about Speakeasy and how it could help you, around this video you'll find a link to my calendar for an online coffee. At the top of my YouTube channel you'll see that link. It says Speakeasy, book an online coffee. Book in a time slot that suits. I look forward to speaking with you soon. Have an absolutely fabulous day.